extremely active earnings week comes to a close. You also had the IIP data, which didn't quite move the market. It was all about technology as well as HDFC Bank.
Oh yes, indeed. Financials, technology, to an extent, the global data also impacting trade. But we really went nowhere. If 5,300 was the fulcrum last week, probably around 5,200 to 5,250 is the new range that we seem to have set for ourselves.
Oh yes, on Friday's closing bell, you clocked in at 52.27 for the day. The Nifty down about 1.6% over the week. The broader market's relative outperformance, but again a weak close at that as well. The Bank Nifty was down about 0.4%. IT indeed took the sharpest knock, with Infosys sliding a good 9% this week, and the IT index was down about 4.8%. Autos and power down 2%, metals down 3%, cap goods 0.7% cut coming in, and consumer durables as well lost about almost 3.5%. It was Infi, Wipro, Tata Steel, JSPL, Siemens, Tata Power, Sesagoa, Bharti and Reliance Infrastructure, which were your key losers in trade.
Lots of mid-caps were, or larger mid-caps as well, which were in news this week. Prominent among them were MCX and Financial Technologies, wherein two pieces of news came out during the week. Of course, they got the approval for, MCX got the approval for an equity exchange, and that had a positive impact. But of course, the FCR are getting deferred, and that had a bit of, put a bit of a spanner to the wheels of both of these counters, both MCX as well as Financial Technologies. So these were a couple of stocks which, well, were in news but didn't move too much. The entire sugar pack got a fillip, and all through the week, they had fairly decent gains considering how the market has done. So not a bad show by them. But the infrastructure basket was really took a bit of a pasting. A lot of these stocks corrected quite significantly compared to the kind of trades that they have shown in the last few weeks. So the GMRs, Lancos of the world didn't have the best of weeks. 6.5% for a GMR, Lanco, GVK, not the best of weeks for sure. The question mark really remains what to do on the larger names the next week, because it's again an earnings specific week, and we'll discuss about those stocks as well. But get in our technical experts to give us a sense of the top movers this week and the top expectations next week as well. Deepak Mohani as well as Sandeep Wagle with their sense of the charts. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining in. Deepak, what's the sense really on the index? Because we seem to have just taken the range down a bit. You think next week as well we could probably slide lower, or we'll stay in this tight 5150 to 5300 kind of a range?
I think the range of the last day and a half or so is too short to really call it a range unless it stays this way for another day or two. We did break down below 5250, so that's intermediate downtrend for the Nifty. But this may need to be taken with a slight pinch of salt, because Infosys really dragged it down, and it's still the third highest weightage in the index. So it's so it may be a lopsided view. The mid-cap index is not in an intermediate downtrend. So it's a week of, let's say, approach it with caution with some of the large caps, but there may still be a fair amount of buying opportunities in the mid-caps.
Sandeep, how have you mapped the market momentum this week, and does it seem like the market can latch on to 5150, 5200 sort of levels?
Looks like it, Aisha. I don't think 5150, 5160 will be taken out on the downside. That will act as a strong support. On the other hand, on the upper side, 5300 will act as a strong resistance, possibly 5330 on the downside. So as Deepak put it, I would agree with him. It will be more of stock-specific plays. A lot of mid-caps are still giving buys, and you can play the market both ways. There are not many stocks which are tanking or falling sharply. So I still am not that comfortable going short. Stock-specific, I'm still comfortable going long. So I think the Nifty won't go anywhere apart from the 50-70 point range, and it will be more of a stock-specific play. That is how I read it as.
Infosys laid a good 9%, and TCS on Friday held out. Deepak, what have you read on both these charts?
I guess if one has to take a slightly optimistic view of Infosys, it is that usually, I mean, if you look at the last three earnings announcements, there have been huge gaps downs, but the stock did not fall very much after that. So we may be roughly at the low it will reach perhaps till the next quarterly earnings, and it may recover slightly from here. So if somebody is holding the stock this long, no need to panic while the market is not really itself getting very bearish.
Sandeep, what's your sense? I mean, some of the other IT names, the likes of Hexaware, which saw a bit of a sell-off as well post the Infi numbers, and maybe even an HCL Tech, which displayed some strength in line with what TCS did.
Well, if you talk of Infi and TCS, I think whatever had to be done was done. And Infi, I would sell only if it breaks 2100. Then one can talk of a 1700 move. Otherwise, it has to be stock specific, Neeraj. I don't want to buy into a TCS because TCS is also in a band. The good thing is TCS has not cracked out. But let TCS clear the 1300 zone, then one can look at a bigger target. But I don't think really that would be the case, at least in the next coming week or two. Maybe whatever will happen will have to happen after a few weeks. And then it is stock specific, you are right. Hexaware is looking weak. HCL also may not be, at higher levels selling will come in. So I think the sentiment has been dampened, and at lower levels I don't want to dabble into these stocks. I don't want to sell also, I don't want to buy also. I would wait for clearer signals.
Okay, the other newsmakers were Financial Technologies and MCX. Got the SEBI nod to start equity trading, and the stocks sure enough saw a fair amount of pop as well.
Deepak, what do you do with both of these? Essentially, Monday morning, is there an opportunity to either buy or short sale, assuming that they open at the same levels?
Not really. If you look at Financial Technologies, it's actually lost 0.1% over the week, so that did not really benefit at the end of the week. MCX, thanks to a huge jump it had earlier in the week, has still finished the week some 6% up. So if any of these stocks is in an uptrend, it's more likely to be MCX. That's the first point. Second, given the huge volatility in both directions we have seen, I think you have to allow the stock to settle down first and then show a trend. Otherwise, such high volatility is not usually accompanied by a good trend in either direction. So, given all that, I don't think there is much of a trade in either of them next week.
Sandeep, any trading opportunities in HP or BP?
Well, Aisha, not really. I see both of them tired at higher levels. Stock of a BPCL at a higher level of around 390, there has been some profit booking. But the weekly chart is still positive. So on a decline, one can buy to the tune of around 378, 380. That range I'm comfortable buying with a say 370 stop loss. And I still feel 390, 95 can be tested. So very small range in which they are likely to move. But the weekly bias is still upwards.
You know, talking about Spirits, United Spirits and the entire UB group was extremely active on the news bits or the talk of Diageo buying stake in United Spirits, and possibly at a much higher price than the current market price. And Thursday and Friday, the 2 days when these stocks really rallied, particularly United Spirits. Deepak, what's the call here? 775 odd. It's shown an uptick for Thursday as well as Friday. Can it spill over into the next week? And is there any other UB group stock that looks attractive as well?
United Spirits really made a very good move on Thursday, and today it closed well below the low. So it's probably correcting slightly, after which again there should be a buying opportunity. It's got a fair good amount of momentum. Long-term trend in the stock probably up, but I think confirmation will need the stock to go above 800. So I think for investing purposes, wait a bit. For trading, there is a good opportunity here. The other stocks, if you look at United Breweries, that's been very flat and sideways compared to Spirits in particular. And it's in a bit of an intermediate downtrend for the last 1 week. So for trading purposes, it's got to be Spirits.
Okay, this week was all about TCS, Infosys as well as HDFC Bank, and next week you've got Axis Bank amongst the banking majors, and of course auto major Hero MotoCorp as well, slated to come out with their earnings. Sandeep, a quick chart check on both these names, Axis as well as Hero MotoCorp.
Well, Aisha, Axis did show a lot of promise last week, early part of last week, but at this point in time, the way the last 3 days price movement has panned out, though I will not say it is very bearish, but some more downside is what I would talk of, a 1020, 1010, that range. And it has lost the momentum at one point of time. I was thinking that it will go above 1100, 1110, 1120. That is the call we had given early part of this week, which has not happened. So at this point in time, range bound between 1030, 1060, if you specifically talk of Axis Bank. Which is the other one you asked?
Hero MotoCorp.
Tata Motors, I am bearish. Hero MotoCorp is opposite of that. Trading buy for a target of 2150 I would talk of, but then normally when they give opposite signals, a big move normally doesn't come in. So a limited upside to the tune of 2140, 2145 in Hero MotoCorp can be bought with a stop loss of 2060 around that.
Mind you, both of these stocks would be in activity next week because Axis Bank, they expect a strong loan growth of over 25% on a YOY basis. And while margins may moderate a little bit, 20 pips decline maybe, the asset quality likely to be manageable. You also heard Shikhar Sharma on the channel saying that the concerns on the NPA levels are over-exaggerated. So maybe they might just come out with a good set of numbers. Hero MotoCorp, extremely active on Friday. Motilal Oswal believes that they could show a 13% sales growth and maybe a 9% bottom line growth. So that one would be a stock that would be active as well. Couple of others include one and Ultratech, which will come out with numbers. So that is another index stock, as well as Bajaj Auto, likely to come out with well, maybe a slightly different set of numbers as compared to Hero MotoCorp. Deepak, what's the view here? One on an Ultratech Cement, and two on a Bajaj Auto.
Ultratech Cement has been making a pretty good move, slow and steady sort of move for the last 3-4 weeks. It's done that in the past, and it does sort of carry on rather like a good strain, doesn't stop very much and keeps getting ahead. So I think a fair amount of investment kind of momentum there, not bad at all. Bajaj Auto, Hero Honda, they have both tended to go in opposite directions, so we are now going for that phase where Hero MotoCorp is going up and Bajaj Auto has been following. So we are seeing this inverse correlation again. Hero looks stronger, Bajaj has been slipping.
Sandeep, what's the view here? A Hindalco, a Sesa Goa, possibly throw in even a Sterlite Industries there?
Neeraj, a small downside. I am not that bearish in this space at this level. They have already fallen, that is the main reason, and once they have fallen, they tend to move sideways, though I have not got any signal to buy them. So there is no question of buying, but I don't want to sell them at this level after such a 4 or 5 days of a correction. The market is not ready for a big crackdown or a big up move. It is sideways, it is consolidating. So one has to play within that range.
Deepak, any trading opportunities in the sugar space?
Possibly, if the market doesn't start really cracking next week. I think sugar did end in a fairly promising way, even though it slipped last couple of days in many of those stocks. From a long-term perspective, I think if somebody wants to go for something, it still remains the same two which I had mentioned last week. Dhampur and Balrampur Chini, those are probably best for longer term. Short-term traders, good amount of momentum in almost all of them if the market starts going up again. And besides these two, Sri Renuka, Bajaj, Hindustan could also be good trades.